Hello and welcome. Today's topic we will be looking into is the Enlightenment, but more specifically, how did science play a role in the Enlightenment, its thinkers, and their ideas? We'll start with the big ideas and get more specific as we go along. A few places that the ideas of science were spread and developed were coffeehouses, societies, and academies. Coffeehouses and cafes, which became popular during this time, began springing up in Europe very quickly. These were respectable establishments that allowed middle-class people to go and socialize. They were perfect breeding grounds for discussion of Enlightenment topics because of their appeal to the increasingly literate middle class. Further, where the real science happened was in societies. These clubs were designed to research, discuss, and debate topics of the time, including, but not limited to, politics, agriculture, economics, and science. They provided the location where new scientific ideas could be researched, developed, and published. It was also important that these societies subsidized scientific research and publication. All of these factors made societies an amazing place for the circulation of ideas and the foundation of change. Academies also served a similar function of bringing people passionate about science together and allowing their ideas to develop, be tested, grow, and then be published. One of the most famous of these academies is the Royal Society of London for the Promotion of Natural Knowledge. The defining attribute of these societies was their, quote, scientifically minded noblemen, end quote, who were fond, quote, of experimental investigation into astronomy, chemistry, physics, mathematics, and mechanics, end quote. These societies developed further into specialized societies to a specific science. Producing publications and works of science was of prime importance to societies. Voltaire, a prominent Enlightenment thinker, appreciated the academies for their drive to make science practical while also striving to make accurate claims. Jean-Antoine Nicolas de Cariatat Condorcet, what a name, also praised academies for their ability to, quote, emphasize publicly their usefulness to humanity of science and scientists. This praise is quite merited. As we discussed with the coffeehouses, the now partially literate population could put their 2 cents in and discuss science. Spreading science to the people is an amazing feat that set the Enlightenment apart from anything before it. Alright, now it's time to dive into the specifics. We are going to take a look at a few Enlightenment fields and the thinkers that really took science and ran with it. Let's start with the well-known Isaac Newton. You cannot talk about the Enlightenment without talking about Isaac Newton. He was the thinker behind the game-changing Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, otherwise known as Principia. This text includes things like Newton's laws of physics, which are still taught in school today, along with fluid dynamics, laws of gravitation, and much more. But what makes this important to our discussion of science is how all of his findings were, quote, rooted in the empirical observation, but set out deductively in mathematical language, end quote. One experiment that exhibited this mindset was when he was developing his controversial theory that white light was just the composition of other colors. He then designed this experiment using refracting prisms and proved his theory correct. Basically, this is groundbreaking stuff that also was backed by science. He really was a leader of his time. He produced many other works based off of empirical evidence, including the still accepted theory of the heavenly bodies. His legacy lies in his impact on how we still think about science. What was most important to him was using experiments to prove your hypothesis. He also is credited with the term Newtonianism, which describes the use of, quote, mathematical tools to tackle problems in natural philosophy, end quote. Natural philosophy is what we call science nowadays. Many thinkers thought this way, and that was a defining feature of the nature of the Enlightenment. Robert Boyle and Robert Hooke both made the same claim as Newton, that it is the man who uses science and its tools to prove their reasoning who is really practicing science. That is empirical evidence. While Newton did great work in physics and mathematics, we will now be shifting gears to astronomy, which he also influenced. This is where scientific instruments played a massive role in the development of the field. Changes were made to the telescope, like the implementation of the double convex lenses and the micrometer. In addition, many scientists tried to tackle the problem of chromatic aberrations in telescopes. These improvements weren't just in the interest of stargazing, however. The new and improved telescopes could accurately measure the stars, so sailors could accurately travel the ocean blue. Cartography became so accurate due to the improvement of the telescope, calculations, and mass observational data that with the new lunar tables, you could tell where you were at sea, give or take 1 latitudinal or longitudinal degree. What is impressive about this feat is how it was not only the work of one scientist that improved the telescope. Transportation and communication of scientific discovery was another very important factor in the Enlightenment. Chemistry was another place where science aided in the transformation of the field from a traditional and mysticism-based field to a practiced modern science. Chemists of this age conducted accurate examinations of chemicals and substances and recorded them. They used balances and analyzed substances, which was the first step in the conception of not only modern chemistry, but also modern medicine and pharmacy. Science, however, was not boundless in the Enlightenment. It was concluded that human physiological study was limited by the lack of possibility of experimentation on humans. So, instead, they turned to the explanation of the phenomena of human inner workings and actions. They understood that this was the limit of their study and did not try to expand past that into outlandish, non-researched claims. Finally, some other interesting sciences like cosmology, archaeology, and zoology have roots in the Enlightenment that share the same determining factors of the Enlightenment. Observe, record, and test your theories. As the old saying goes, give a man a fish, he will eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he will eat for the rest of his life. The Enlightenment did both, however. It left us with concrete knowledge in the sciences that is still used today. In addition to the development of the scientific method, where you hypothesize, observe, and experiment to prove your ideas. Science as we know it today would not have been the same without the use of science in the Enlightenment.